We are on. All right. I am going to call this meeting to order at 7:01. Could I please get a roll call?
Donald Woodworth.
Here.
Jack Sapia.
Present.
Katie Knudsen.
I'm here. Kristen will be late.
Okay.
Sorry.
Dan Thorne. Mark Sherwood.
Yes.
Kim McCormick.
Here.
And Woodworth.
Present. All right. Thank you. And if we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Right. We are going to move on to approval of the minutes. Do we have any non-public?
We do.
We do. Okay. But first, let's get the regular public ones. I do have a correction on page 7, number 11, the committee reports. It's the third paragraph. It says that the safety committee meeting will be June 20th. It's actually July 20th. Other than that, that's the only correction I have.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes after that correction.
Which set? The 12th?
Oh,
Or the 1st or the 12th?
Public.
The public. Wait. Oh, we're doing the June 1st meeting minutes. That's what it was. That was the correction, was to the June 1st
Yeah,
meeting
I
minutes.
got that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Bree has made a motion to approve those minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Kim. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And abstained. Okay. And then the next meeting minutes would be June 12th.
No, you have June 1st non-public
Oh.
in our hands.
Oh, yeah. I'm so sorry.
You have to, sorry,
No,
you
you're
have
good.
to give them that.
You're good. Thank you, Shauna.
You're welcome. I do have a correction.
What is it? What is it?
I don't think that was me. So that wasn't my team.
Yes. I don't know if we can talk about that here, though.
I know.
So we could just strike that name off and keep it to myself.
That's what I was gonna recommend.
That's what I'd recommend. We'll just keep my name in there and remove hers.
Okay. If you know where the place is, then just strike it or whatever. Sorry. Tell her what page it's on and what should it be? It's
Page 2.
Page 2 of the non-public minutes. We're striking out one name for an individual that was not present during something.
Well, I didn't make the statement.
You didn't make a statement, so
Second paragraph.
second paragraph.
It was still Mr. Sherwood's statement.
Okay.
Yep.
Just round it up, go back.
Okay. Other than that, does anybody else have any corrections? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve these as amended?
I'll make that motion.
Mark makes the
Seconded.
motion. Seconded by Bree. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed and abstained. If everybody could pass those back, please. Now, on to the 12th meeting minutes. Okay.
Make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from June 12th.
Got a motion, to have a second?
Second.
Second by Kim?
Yeah.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed and abstained. Motion passes. Okay. Right. Students, staff, and family share. We do have some people here today, do we not?
We do. So we have Miss Bird, who is the coach of the girls lacrosse team. She's going to just do a quick introduction. We'll have some of the players speak. And then, like typically, they'll be here to kind of entertain any questions or comments from the board.
All right. Thank you.
there any place that we should?
Hi. Right up here.
Yes, ma'am, if you
Okay.
would, just come sit so the microphone so the people back at home can hear you.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Helena Bird. I am a phys ed teacher at the high school. I'm also the girls varsity lacrosse coach. And with me tonight, I have rising seniors Brooke Morin, Jordan Friel, Lily Bryan, and Ann Quinn, and rising junior Lulu Trezati from our team. We had a great season. I'm going to kind of leave it to the girls to talk about a lot of the things. But like I said at our banquet the other night, we set the bar high. The kids rose, met the expectations, and exceeded expectations all season long. I think I had more fun than the kids half the time, which is a good sign, but I hope that they had fun too and have some good things to say. We're going to talk a little bit about our youth program, how we really want to promote and build our youth program. Our summer camp, we have a girls' summer camp available for grades entering grade 4 through 8 next week. It's on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the high school. So registration's open on that on the Timberlane website. So that's kind of my plug for that. But I do want to turn it over to some of the girls. They have a few things to say about our season, and then they are open to field any questions.
All right, come on up, ladies.
Lil, do you want to come up first? Okay.
Can you sit up here?
Yes, I will.
Hi, my name's Lily, and I'm a rising senior, and I'm going to talk about our season, statistically. We came off of our season last year, 8-8, and one of our goals was to have a winning season and to make playoffs, and our season record was 13-5, and we made the quarterfinals.
Nice.
And
If you want to, just game to game, or
Okay.
if you're all set.
we had 2 scrimmages in the beginning of the season, and we hadn't had much practice before that, so we were still getting to know each other on and off the field. And as our season started, we started to gain momentum, and we started to work our offense a lot more, and we got into the flow of things, and our defense started to hit some of their goals and get louder and work on their slides. And then so by the end of the season, we had a really great thing going, and we were all happy with the way we were playing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lily.
And do you want to come up next and talk about youth?
My name is Anne, and I will be a senior next year. And so, as a midfielder, we wanted to help out the youth programs and help them learn about what lacrosse was and how they could help it with their future. So, a group of us went down to the Rattlers program for some of their practices and help them learn about draws and how they could help that in their gameplay. And we wanted to have all the players do it so then they could be open to more positions and how they could improve in the future. And this is hopefully going to help us grow our program and have them able to come up and have fun throughout the program.
Thank you. That's awesome.
And then last we have Lulu Trezati coming up to talk a little bit about our program culture and just the day-to-day operations.
I'm Lulu. I'm going to be a junior next year, and I just think that we were all really close off the field, which had a big impact on how we played on the field because everyone just trusted each other and knew how each other would play and what they're best with. So I just think it made us more successful throughout the season and definitely helped us a lot.
Good team chemistry usually does. Yeah, Mark, go
Just
ahead.
one real fast question. When did you all start playing? Because you're trying to introduce 4th grade, right? When did you all become introduced to it?
Brooke, answer that.
This was my first year, so I was new to everything, but having a welcoming environment helped me be able to learn and grow faster. So I actually ended up having a really fun and good year. So.
Good for you guys for giving back, seeing as how you started later. That's awesome.
Yeah. Jack?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be talking about athletics in a few minutes, and I have a picture here I'm going to share with everyone. It's of my daughter's soccer team 10 years ago. They've all graduated from college, and now they're all going overseas together as a group. So you'll probably be friends for a very long time, but what I find most admirable about what you're doing is you're reaching back down into the youth programs, because I think you all realize that it's about creating a program, not about having a specific team. And you start having great teams because you have a great program, and my guess is with a pretty good coach too, because I'm very impressed with these young ladies. So thank you. Thank you, ladies.
We're hoping to really get a bottom to top approach here for our program, so making sure that the foundation, the fundamentals are really good, so that by the time they come up to the high school, we can hopefully continue to beat and exceed our goals that have been set for this year. We're hoping to be a really competitive program in D2, and like I said, these kids really rise and meet and exceed the expectations every day, so I couldn't ask for a better group. So thank you guys for the opportunity, and if you guys have questions, feel free to answer, reach out to me. I can connect you with the kids or anything that you might need, but thank you.
Well, thank you, and congratulations, ladies, on your season. Thank you again, ladies. So the next part is our delegates and individuals, and I'm going to let Anthony, and I'm going to butcher your last name, so I'm going to let you say it.
That's a tough act to follow.
It is. But you are from the YMCA, correct?
Yes, ma'am. My
Yeah.
name's Anthony Panciocco. I'm the Director of Child Care Services at the Southern District YMCA in Exeter, New Hampshire. I'm just here to say thank you to the Timberlane School Board and Danville Elementary School for partnering with us last year to open up our before and after school program in the elementary school after quite a few years that we had been gone. COVID really had taken a toll on our program like it did most programs. And we had been building back program quality and also staffing to make sure that we could staff and run a quality after school program. We were fortunate to serve 24 students this year, and a lot of that was due to myself and our site director working really closely with Chris Snyder over at Danville to kind of draw a through line through school day objectives for our students, using common languages, identifying students that may be struggling and giving us some really good behavioral techniques that work in school, so we're not reinventing the wheel, right? We're using the same language techniques that they're using in school to make sure that our students are successful. After school can be a really difficult time of transition. Sometimes for our kids, it's a long day. So having that partnership goes a long way in making a quality program for kids and families. This partnership has allowed us to serve 4,000 healthy breakfasts and snacks to our students. And we're really grateful that the partnership also allows us to keep our costs low. So we're not just a before and after school program for folks that can afford it. We're for all that need it. So we're really fortunate that this partnership and being able to occupy that space at Danville Elementary does allow us to give over $1,000 a month in financial assistance to families to make sure that they can access our program. And Chris and the office have been so wonderful about helping us identify families that may be in need and in helping us, get them to the funds that can help them access programs. So I'm also just grateful that we have a 2-year MOU signed now. So we have some sustainability for ourselves and for the before and after school program in Danville. So thank you guys very much. And I apologize, I'm going to be slipping out. I promised my son I'd be home for bedtime, and I have a shot at getting there. So thank you all very much.
Thank you,
for
and get
having
home
me.
to your son.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Sapia,
2.5 minutes.
I'm going to be timing you.
It was hard for me at the graduation last night to not grab a microphone.
Floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I come to you tonight as a dad, a coach, a former school board rep, and a former collegiate athlete, but not as a school board rep. I'll speak to you tonight about athletics. Here's a picture of my daughter and her 7 friends at a cooking class before they go off on an adventure after graduating from the high school 10 years ago. It seemed like yesterday they met for the first time at the age of 4 playing soccer for the Timberwolves, with their t-shirts dragging on the ground with an occasional foot poking out to kick a ball. They all stuck with it through high school, 3 of them becoming captains. During the off seasons, they ran winter and spring track. They all graduated with honors. Then they went on to college. Double engineering major, Carnegie Mellon. Double major, Montana State University, now attending Harvard. MBA, Merrimack College. Engineering degree, UConn, and so forth. But most of all, you'll never find finer individuals anywhere on the planet. They're loving, they're caring, and they're generous. They're part of this is what sometimes we produce here at Timberlane. You'll hear a lot about social and emotional efforts, as well as climate and culture tonight and in the evenings moving forward. There is nothing that complements and enhances these efforts more than athletics in the performing arts. It's a statistical certainty. This isn't my opinion, it is fact driven by data. SAT scores and going on to college are more common amongst our student athletes. This is why most elite high schools around the country, a sport a semester is a requirement, not an option. They understood the benefits of for academics and from a social standpoint through athletics. Here are some of the benefits. Build a foundation for a fit life, improve health outcomes, achieve better academic outcomes, experience increased mental health activity, stave off depression, building leadership skills, develop teamwork, strengthen social skills, just to name a few. With all that is broken around here, please consider how crucial this part of what we do is to our success. It is sometimes last on our list of priorities without fully understanding how it assists what is going on inside our buildings, and that athletics is more than a final score of a game or the team's record. I would ask you and the community to consider supporting, enhancing both our youth and in-school programs for our students, coaches, and teachers for all the reasons I stated before. Thank you for the time.
You had 8 seconds to spare, my friend. Good job.
Why me?
All right. There are. Linda, you didn't have any more delegates or individuals down there, do you?
Nope.
All right. That was just the 2. So, student rep. It's all yours.
All right, so Sandown Central School last Tuesday, kindergarten students visited Sandown North to meet their new teachers and see their new school. Mrs. Dessou and Mrs. Miller's classes have been studying bees for the last inquiry cycle of the year. On Friday, they received a visit from a beekeeper, which was super exciting for students. 5th grade Danville students participated in a move-up day to the middle school last week. The 5th grade Moving On celebration happened Tuesday, June 13th. All students at Danville Elementary participated in an outdoor field day this week. On June 8th, Sandown North's chorus sang "A Million Dreams" to the retirees to wish them the best in their next chapter. On Monday, grades 1 through 4 had step-up visits to their next grade. The students got to hear what type of things they would learn about, see the classrooms, and meet some of the teachers. On Wednesday, June 14th, 5th graders were provided with a special pizza lunch. A special thank you to Sandown PTA. On Thursday, 5th graders had their final breakfast celebration and recognition ceremony. 3 5th graders received the Citizenship Award. Thank you to Playmates Learning Center for sponsoring this award. This year's recipients for the Citizenship Award were Bristol Powell, Kendall Stowell, and Addison McClear. For Atkinson Academy on June 13th, the grade 5 promotion ceremony took place. 49 5th graders and families celebrated their elementary years. At the ceremony, Mrs. Riley was honored, a grade 5 teacher who is retiring from the academy. Yesterday, field day for Atkinson Academy took place at Woodlock Park. There were over 60 volunteers. Thank you to the volunteers and staff for making this day happen. Also, a special thanks to Mr. Goddard, a PE teacher, for his work in organizing the day. There was a food drive at Pollard. The food collected at Pollard was donated to St. Luke's Food Pantry. On May 30th, 21 5th grade Pollard students sang the national anthem at the Fisher Cats game. 5th graders went on the Freedom Trail field trip to Boston. There was an assembly and visit to the middle school for 5th graders to find out more in preparation for the move up to middle school. 2nd graders' grade level picnic with students, staff, and families happened on June 6th. Pollard had a whole school field day on June 9th with over 40 parent garden volunteers. The 5th grade parent committee provided a wonderful 5th grade movie night on June 9th and a wonderful celebration on June 12th. They also created an amazing yearbook for 5th grade students. The staff held a retirement breakfast for John Manella and Deb Waters on June 13th. On June 13th, the middle school had their 8th grade dance. 8th graders also had their step-up ceremony to highlight their work in their middle school career. And then at the high school, the last day of school for underclassmen was today. Graduation was a success. Seniors celebrated their 12 years of hard work in their school careers. Underclassmen exams wrapped up today at the high school. And the final Milkman show for this school year took place tonight. And lastly, senior scholarships were awarded June 8th at 6 p.m. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Right, moving on to our current business, and the first thing is the 2023-2024 PAC schedule, and it looks like it is packed full. Everything.
Easy.
I know, I just had to take it. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Is there anything that you wanted to say to this schedule?
No, this is just something that we do every year. Locking this in allows us to get the schedule set to bring in outside events to the Performing Arts Center. Obviously, prioritizing in-school events first, but this just gives us the foundation for that.
Okay, so I am needing a motion to accept this, the 2023-2024 proposed music and drama schedule of events.
moved.
So moved by
I'll
Shauna,
second it.
seconded by Jack. Do we have any discussion?
I was just wondering.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why away games are included on this? Is the pack available for use during that time?
It limited because we have the entire band that comes in prior to leaving for the event, and then they come in later once they're done. And some of those rooms are used storage of things while the kids are away. So, I mean, if someone was looking to use the pack, we would have to amend how that would look, but it is possible.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Your pen apparently didn't like it. Opposed and abstained. Thank you. 900.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Schwartz.
Thank you.
If you need a second.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 800. Paul's not here. That's my bad. My brain is just not with it. All right, the next thing on the list is a scholarship fund. I'm just going to read this. Timberlake Regional School District was bequeathed the residual estate of Maurice R. Collins with the purpose of creating the Maurice R. Collins and Una M. Collins Scholarship Fund. This scholarship will assist qualifying graduates of the Timberlake Regional District High School to obtain further education. The amount that was issued to the Plastow trustees of trust funds was over $458,000. So thank you. So is there anybody that needs to speak to this, or Justin, is there anybody that needs to speak to this? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the establishment of the Maurice R. Collins and Una M. Collins Scholarship Fund and the amount received from the residual estate of Maurice R. Collins.
A
I'll second
motion,
that.
seconded by Jack. Do we have any discussion?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Jack.
So, my understanding is this is Una and Jay Collins from Atkinson, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, I'd just like to say something, because these people were so uniquely special.
Okay.
Una was an inspiration to me, and she spoke directly to how I was going to act as an elected official. Their contributions and generosity goes well beyond the community. It speaks to what they did for this country. Una was an Army WACS during World War II, in charge of teaching anyone going to the Pacific Theater with communications equipment. She knew that some of those boys weren't going to return. And as I remember correctly, she was stationed in Arizona. Jake was in the Navy on a fuel tanker, which was the #1 target of the Japanese Navy. It was the only one they could slow. It was the only way they could slow the American Navy down. And as he explained it to me, you had about a 3-day life expectancy if your ship got into the red zone. He did not reach out to his mom thinking he wasn't going to return, and 3 months later he found out she had passed. These were incredible people, and what they did for us will be long-lasting beyond what they've done here. So they're very special people that needed to be acknowledged. Thank you.
Very much so. And we thank them for the contribution as well. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed and abstained. 800. Thank you. All right. The next thing is we have another donation to the TRHS Art Department from Community Tribute to a local artist memory of $4,004, including art supplies in the name of Tommaso
Stina.
Thank you. You're welcome. For a celebration at the Crow's Nest. Tommaso made so many residents smile with his portraits that he would draw in local restaurants all over Rockingham County and parts of Massachusetts. Respectfully submitted by Patty Mangini. So could I please get a motion to accept the $4,004 and art supplies?
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Right here.
Jack, second it?
Please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, okay. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And abstained. 800. All right. Another donation, donation of Sandown North Elementary School from a community member, Greg, who wants to try to say that last name? Thank you. Of a portable defibrillator unit. The school currently has one that is located in the hall by the gym. This would provide a second device. The unit is manufactured by Zoll and is product number, doesn't say the product, AED3, valued at $1,250. This has been submitted by Nancy Stafford, the principal. And it's from what I can tell, it's a brand new AED, correct? And Zoll's a very good brand, so could I get a motion?
Respectfully make the motion to accept the Zoll AED.
Got a motion to have a second?
Second.
Second by Shauna. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And abstain. 800.
Thank you to Mr. Kalicki for
Yes.
his donation.
Yes, thank you.
And also thank you to the Friends of Tommaso Schina.
Yes,
For
yes.
the donation as well.
Yes.
We didn't say that, and that
We
was
should
very
have.
kind of them to do that as well.
Yes, we should have said that. Pre-engineering training grant, right? Yeah.
The elementary enrollment update.
Oh,
Which
so
one?
elementary
Doesn't
roll.
matter.
Well, just go ahead and do the pre-engineering. You're back. You're up here. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm all off tonight. So you've possibly got us some grant money.
I did get us some grant money.
Nice.
It's money from the state to get teachers trained in Project Lead the Way classes. So due to attrition, we lost some of our teachers who were previously trained in the Project Lead the Way classes. So this will hopefully, bring us back up to being able to offer all of those classes with fully trained teachers. And part of the training helps us then, or allows those students to take those classes for an HTI credit or now RTI credit as well. So it'll benefit the students to get those teachers trained, and most of the training right now is online, so it can work with the teacher schedule. So we're just going to work with the teachers to figure out their schedule when they can get trained. But hopefully, this grant money will allow us to pay for that training to just benefit our kids.
And the way the grant works is that once we accept this, you just turn in reimbursements, and they'll just reimburse us. Is that how it's going to work?
That would be more of a business office question.
Okay.
I don't know how the individual state grants work in that regard.
Okay.
Whether it's like a reimbursement or whether it's they'll pay us up front.
But we're not having to match anything, right? We don't have.
There
to
is no matching
Okay.
grant. This is just
Okay.
a 100% just state grant.
Okay, sounds great. So, could I get a
Make a
motion?
motion to accept the TRSB, that we accept the $9,600 state grant to increase access to Project Lead the Way.
Motion to have a second?
Second.
Second by Shauna. Any further discussion?
Sorry, I just have one
Yeah, Bree, go ahead.
Do you have willing staff members currently?
Yes, in fact, there were teachers who were asking to get trained in this, and it wasn't in our budget. I was going to put it into the budget, but then this came along, and I figured it was a better way to do it.
We agree.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Great question, Bree. All those in favor? Opposed and abstained? 800. Thank you. Thank you for going after that grant.
No worries, thank you.
Thank you. Now, Lucy.
Would you like Mark to go first?
I don't care. Whichever one wants to go. And so this is for our enrollment numbers, correct?
I'll let you go first.
Okay.
Rock, paper, scissors out.
There
Someone
you
go.
So in your packet tonight, you have an updated enrollment executive summary. I tried to give a little more detail to our early childhood numbers because we're now at the end of the school year. We feel pretty secure about those numbers. And almost every single one of them is completely registered. So we'll move into the summer in that way with half day and full day outlined there. We do have some additional pressure points that have been added, which are highlighted at the bottom of your summary. We have 2 grades that are 1 student away from reaching that maximum capacity number and 2 that are 2 students away.
So when we reach these maximum numbers, is that the point at which you either have to come back here and have us waive policy, or would you add another teacher at that point? Or is it once it hits that number, if you guys go one more, then it's over?
So typically when we hit the number, we'll come back to the board, and that's a conversation that we have here.
Okay.
Great. Go ahead.
These are not state limits, these are our own limits, right?
Grade 4 seems to be where all the pressure points are, right?
Well, grade 4 in one school right now. We have grade 4 at Danville and grade 5 at Pollard, and then grade 2 at Danville and grade 3 at Pollard.
Bree.
Grade 4 at Danville.
He's just talking aloud. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, in grade 5 at Pollard, right?
So let's pretend that we want to change our maximum class size numbers. Is that a policy committee meeting discussion?
Yes, being discussed in curriculum and assessment, and then it'll go to policy.
It's being discussed currently?
Currently.
For the coming year, or
Well,
when would it roll out?
Good question.
It could take
I'm
some time
going
to
to yield
make
to Sandy
change.
on that.
Yeah. So, I was doing a little digging, a little research, and these maximum class sizes were set back in 2011.
The last time the policy was revised, yes.
Looking at those class sizes, they were roughly all 20 when they made this policy. And the policy was set as a minimum of 9 and a maximum of 24. I feel like that's a pretty large swing. And as we all know, IEP, special education, anything has only increased in demand for our teachers. So I feel, and maybe it's the will of the board, maybe it's not, maybe we can bring it up to the appropriate committees, that it's time to maybe revise some of these maximum class sizes, and maybe even increase the minimum class size. I think 9 is a little low, personally, and maybe we could focus more on minimum class sizes versus maximum class sizes.
Kim, where are you all at with this in curriculum? Or Sandy, I mean, aren't you in?
Go ahead, Sandy.
So, yeah, there's a bit of a history of how long we've been working on this, a curriculum assessment committee. So it's been a good close to 2 years that we've been doing some research in this, not because we haven't had any momentum and not been doing any work, but rather because it's quite complex when it comes to budgeting, staffing. We did some research. I actually brought an additional document that I'm happy to pass around. It's double-sided, but I'll pass this around. This is one piece of information that our committee has looked at. So we started looking at this. We wanted to look at the research, educational research, to look at where that pointed us with regard to optimum class size numbers at different developmental age levels, things of that nature. So we did. There are additional ones as well. Yeah, there. If everyone, hopefully everyone got a copy.
Yeah, we're good.
And so we spent some time doing that, digging into that. What we found was that the research did not show a significant effect size on reducing class size by anything lower than 14. So if we were looking at making any minor changes, it wasn't showing, based on the educational research, that it would have a significant impact on learning outcomes. Does not mean it might not have a different type of impact on the educational environment, but with regard to learning outcomes, there is not a lot of research that shows that. So that was one piece that we looked at. We also did some digging. What you're looking at in front of you, this was not designed to be shared as a document for public consumption, but I'm just sharing it with you because I know there have been some questions. I put this together probably 18 months ago just by going to websites of 25-ish. I'm not even sure how many are on here anymore. New Hampshire school districts, looking at their policies that are posted on their websites, and at each grade level, just identifying what their max enrollment numbers are. So you'll see our policy numbers are at the top there. The New Hampshire School Board Association's sample policy numbers are just below that. And then you can follow, it's double-sided. Those are all the districts whose policies I found. Some districts do not have policies on class size. Others have spans. And so just to try to make some sense of this on our committee, we use this color coding system. So the yellow, right, just visually indicates where at different grade levels in different school districts Those numbers are below ours. Green we used to just indicate that it was the same at that grade level. Red indicates that that school district was above ours. In those spans, we went with the top number because that would be kind of their cap, right? And some of them, Dairy Cooperative, for example, has a striving for. So, we did our best with this. This was just something that we looked at to add on to our research. From there, this year, earlier this fall, we spent a significant amount of time looking at our current enrollment numbers and looking at the budgetary impact and the impact on classroom space at all of our different elementary schools. If we were to lower, say, kindergarten to 18, K1 18, we looked at grades 2, 3, I think 20 we first started with. We dropped grades 4, 5 to 23. And so that was one of our first numbers that we ran. Mrs. Kanotis explored a variety of different combinations of that just to see what that budgetary impact would be. We looked at those numbers again this past Tuesday at Curriculum Assessment Committee, and the budgetary impact ranged from, I think, the 4 FTE at the lowest, which was not a significant impact on lowering the numbers, all the way up to 14 FTE. And in some schools, we might have space for those classrooms. In others, we do not. And so it's quite complex. So we consciously last year at CNA made a decision to not make a recommendation to policy because of the potential for the significant budgetary impact. We instead decided to form a committee. That's our next step that we voted on this past Tuesday when we were going to invite actually Mrs. Manthorn, who sits on policy committee, to see if we could have a work session this summer. That was our vote this past Tuesday that we looked at. But also knowing that the board has the authority and the purview to make a recommendation to waive policy at any time if there were individual situations that we were not comfortable with, you all were not comfortable with regard to class size. So that's sort of the history of what we've been doing for the past 2 years, looking and digging into this policy at CNA, and we're still continuing that work. So that meeting, that's committee-focused work session, ideally will happen this summer.
Just one of the things that I'm hoping to see soon would be if we can get NASDAQ, say, a 5-year projection of what the elementary numbers are going to look like in our district, because I think that we have to be careful as we try to get the best results possible and be fair to our staff and use our space to our best advantage moving forward. We don't know what to expect. I'm really worried about elementary numbers growing and putting us in a position where we're handcuffed here because we don't have the space or the personnel to handle, or one or the other, to handle the need when we go over the limit beyond what we feel we can tolerate. So, I think it's something to be aware of, and we need all the information we can get. That NASDAQ's been pretty reliable over time with be able to project what we would be facing, district-wide in numbers. At least at the high school where we looked at it, we knew, probably 10 years ago that we'd be closer to 1,000 than the 1,600 we were at, in 2008 or so. So we really have to be thinking about down the road with this policy stuff. And these numbers are high compared to a lot of schools, and I think it's just something we need to be, prepared to look at planning for changes to meet the needs that Bree was alluding to in terms of what would be an ideal size that we want to strive for.
Yeah. And thank you for that, Sandy. But Armand, I'm actually going to put you a little bit on the spot and get a student perspective. Okay. What do you think about this? I mean, as far as like your career in school and everything, I mean, do you classes that you had more peers in versus smaller? I mean, from a student perspective, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the class.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the different subjects, I mean, personally with like our sciences, they are a little bit more, there's more people in them. So it really depends on what class you're in and how the size is going to look.
Thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot. Bree, did you have a follow-up question?
Do.
Okay.
Thanks so much. If we were to alleviate some of the pressure points, mainly Danville and Pollard, as those are our two big ones, I would say, do we have the classroom space for that in this coming academic year?
In those schools, I believe. I'm looking at, yes, because I know there's an additional one that was added. Yes. Yep.
Because again, in my extensive research, I found that the average class size was 20, give or take 20. Not 25, not 26, 20. And I think maintaining that equity as much as possible across the board in the future for our students is the best move, especially in a time of COVID. I know we're still saying that, especially with our younger learners that don't even know how to navigate school yet, that are learning so many social, emotional skills that they can take with them through the middle school and high school years. I personally would like to really maybe even waive policy. I'm not making a motion yet, but maybe putting it in people's minds for those pressure points.
Well, Bree, would you like to be a part of that committee that they're talking about so that maybe you could help them?
Always.
Sandy, would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jack?
Yeah, I'm a little torn here because we look at the data and the data says, that the number of students, up 25, 26, really it doesn't affect the learning. On the other hand, the other consideration you have is the staff. What's the wear and tear on the staff, right?
Absolutely.
I did a simple math problem here. If you add up all 4 schools in the 4th grade, we have 11 classes at, to get to 20 per class, you need to add 1 more class. How you would configure that amongst the 4 schools, I don't know if you can just average it out that way. And I know it's a little bit challenging because you'd have to ask some children to go from one school to another, and I don't know if that would be a successful exercise. So there's a lot to balance here. Most importantly, I know that the classes with 24, 25 students right now, the data shows that the students aren't being affected, but like I said, it's a bigger picture than just that. So do we waive policy? Do we hire an extra teacher? I kind of like the idea where I was 2 weeks ago with this isn't a problem that's going to go away, so hire a couple grade school teachers to float from grade to grade, from year to year, to school, and that's more for you folks to come to us with something, but that's the way I'm looking at it.
Could I just add one thing? So in the past, if we had open and vacant positions available in the budget, we would have been able, right, if we saw some of these pressure points and it was the will of the board, to create additional classroom positions at a grade level, post them, hire appropriately. We've addressed, I think, in 3 different grade levels, Sandown grade 3, Atkinson grade 5, Atkinson kindergarten. Those were over policy numbers, and all of those grade levels we already increased by 1 by shuffling around some positions that were vacated through staff leaving or retirement. So we have been able to accommodate our staffing for the most part with our current positions. Right now, we no longer have open and vacant positions to repurpose if we wanted to go down that route. So we would, the board, right, would have to be able to identify where that funding would come from to create new positions, because we no longer have remaining open and vacant positions to repurpose. Just wanted to make sure you were aware of that.
Yeah.
All right, Shauna, she answered your question?
Yes, she did.
All right. Well, Jack, one more
So
comment,
in
then we're
these-
going to get
yeah,
on to the
thank
secondary.
you. Thank you for your patience. In these classes that are meeting our maximum threshold, do they have paras in those classes to assist the teachers? I mean, are there always I would think that there should always be an assistant when we reach that level in that classroom.
They would be identified based on the IEP needs for each student, not identified as classroom assistants, but to provide support to students who might have a need based on their educational plan.
Do we have any interns, like student interns that are taking their education degrees, that they come in and?
We have a few interns in our district now, and we are continuing to try to leverage that.
Yeah.
personnel.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Lucy. Did you have anything else for us? Moving on to you.
Also, I accept that invitation. Great. As policy member to meet. We can meet next week. I think we need to jump on this sooner rather than later.
Okay. All right. Secondary?
So secondary, we haven't identified any pressure points based on the numbers for next year. In fact, in your packet, you'll see the executive summary where just by the nature of how secondary is scheduling and building schedules and building, and we're already kind of thinking about the 24-25, or at least I am, thinking about the 24-25 school year and thinking about how to build that. So we're already kind of thinking about numbers in that regard, but as of this moment, there's really no pressure points that we've identified with class sizes at the middle school or the high school for 23-24. Okay. And we try to anticipate those and get ahead of those. And so, like I said, building 24-25, 25-26, we try to stay ahead of it as best we can.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for secondary? Bree?
Is there a minimum class size in secondary?
So I'm glad you asked that question because, your comment earlier about raising the minimum. We've traditionally sort of worked on we don't run anything 10 or below, with the exception of, APs, kids who have worked sort of their whole academic career to get to a point. We typically try not to cut them off from that. Kids who are looking to do Spanish 5, French 5, kids who are doing that engineering design development, sort of those capstone courses, the AP courses. We have run those at less than 10, but it's also a balance between the staff that we have and other sections of courses that we need to teach. We typically, like I said, don't run anything less than 10. APs, capstone courses are sort of the exception to that rule, if you will.
Yeah. For those AP courses, is there ability to reach out to a local college that may offer it online that the student could then get credit for through that, and maybe lower tuition and less money via paying someone?
Potentially. So, taking a course online at a college is not equivalent necessarily to an AP. Like if you were taking a course at Northern Essex Community College, for example, you're taking it there. It's a college, it's dual enrollment. We do offer dual enrollment through NHTI, through Southern New Hampshire University. In a way, it's different. It's not AP. Some kids are taking AP because of the name AP, of that AP exam, because the colleges that they want to go to might recognize AP, but might not recognize a NECO course. Those are options for kids. We haven't necessarily said to a kid, we're not going to run something at Timberlane, like an AP at Timberlane, and you're going to now go and take that same course at NECO or our college online. That's not something that we've done in the past. It doesn't mean that we can't do that. It's sort of different because we do offer dual enrollment and we do offer AP, and usually there's sort of a different group of kids or different sort of what they're chasing down in that regard.
Kim?
If you have a class that only has, like, say you have French, AP French, and you only have 4 kids,
Yep.
and you're debating whether or not, or maybe not an AP class, but a class where you only have 4 kids, and you're debating whether or not to keep that class, is that something that comes to the board?
Not necessarily to the board, only.
Like if you had to nix the whole class altogether because you didn't have enough students, I mean.
It's not something that we would come to the board to nix the class. It's just, in our program of studies, as part of the program of studies, it's known, and it says, and I forget exactly where it says on it, that, classes running are dependent upon enrollment, teachers, things of that nature. So year to year, it's not like everything in the program of studies always gets run. And if just because students say that they want to take a class, so let's just say a course, we have 4 students request it, but the other things that they are requesting, only 3 students might get that class. So just because you request a class, it might not mean that. Or 4 students request it, we build it, let's just say it's AP, we build it with 4 kids. Once the schedule gets run, 2 of those kids say, I don't really want to take that anymore. And then another one, so there's sort of those things that happen in the schedule build to basically the fall and when we start running. We've oftentimes, with some classes, we've been able to combine them. So it's kids are taking there's two groups of kids in the same room at the same time. We do that with a number of engineering classes. So we can make sure that kids get what they want. So, kids are taking architectural drawing and AutoCAD 2. And the teacher is running two classes at the same time in the same room, because we're trying to make sure that kids are getting all the things that they want. We do that sometimes with like AP and level 5 languages. So we try to get as creative as we can and do what we can to ensure that kids can get those opportunities. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did.
Okay.
Yeah, I follow you.
It's a little different than the elementary piece where you're talking about,
Adding.
one teacher with one classroom throughout the whole day, basically.
Yeah.
Where it's maybe a fifth of teacher's load or something like that. So one class they have might be smaller, but it doesn't impact the whole system. You make a judgment when you try to schedule everything you see what's left over, and you say, okay, I've got maybe a chance to run three low number classes. Which ones are going to have the greatest impact positive? Some things we can't run. And that's
And we've had teachers voluntarily take a 6th class just because they don't want to not have a class run. So it's a very sort of a different scheduling mindset than at the elementary level. So
Right.
it's two very different in that regard. Looking at numbers, you sort of have to think about it very differently, and how we schedule, how we run, how we build things.
And certification plays a huge role, especially in the sciences, right? Where if you have the ability to run one additional life science course, but all of your teachers who hold that cert are fully scheduled, right? There's some flexibility, but certification plays a huge role in the scheduling of courses at the high school level and middle school level.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions for them?
I do.
Yep, Kim, go ahead.
So if we're talking about we don't have any FTEs, full-time employees, for the pressure point classes that we're talking about, but a few weeks ago, a few meetings ago, and Maria, this is kind of you, sorry, we were talking about a surplus that we pulled the $400,000 for the tennis courts. Could we not pull from that surplus to go and find these teachers to alleviate these pressure points right now so that we don't have to spend the summer finding teachers?
we didn't have the answer to that question. We were talking about that at a little bit at the curriculum meeting, and that, I wonder, to what we are facing, are there things that we're sacrificing or making uncomfortable that we could do something about? Is that money, something's, I didn't have the answer to that question.
So I think that I wouldn't say it if we weren't like in a post-COVID world. So a 26 in a pre-COVID world might look a little differently than 26 fifth graders in a post-COVID world, or those second graders that have barely been in school at all. So I don't know how to do that, but we have money, right?
I think when we get to agenda item N, which is encumbrances, I think
Yeah.
we'll have some information for you at that point from Maria. Do I understand that correctly for encumbrances?
Yeah, it's not necessarily related to that because there hasn't been a decision. So, yeah, we're not encumbering for that.
If you're just asking generally, can the board move to expend funds that is in an unreserved fund balance, or that will be left over, whatever language you want to use? The answer is yes.
Thank you.
Jack, last question.
I thought that he's saying that to me a lot.
No, for
but-
everybody.
I know.
We got other agenda items.
I'm teasing you. I thought we would have to have the teacher under contract, and if we were to say have to fund a new position for next year, it would have to come out of next year's budget, not out of
like the current.
encumbering this, because my understanding is you need to have, whether it be a contract in place or a teacher in place by June 31st, right? On June 30th. Do an extra day on there for you.
I said yes at first, so.
Yeah, so that was my understanding of it always, but I think with an $83 million budget, if there was a real need for something, that is why we are here. That's my understanding of it.
And there'll be more discussion on this too, so this
Yeah.
isn't a one-time thing. So, All right, thank you guys. But I think you've got one more thing. You're clear, Mark. So this is the ELA instructional coaching position. We talked about this at our last school board meeting and voted to go ahead and do the title change, but we are needing a second vote. Is that correct, Lucy?
Correct. We were unaware that out of the 5 positions, one of them was not labeled in the way that was presented last time as literacy specialist. It had never been changed to literacy specialist, so because it had an intervention title, it needs a separate vote.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about? Like I said, we discussed this last time. It's literally just a title change.
So moved.
Moved by Jack to accept the title change. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Seconded by Bree. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And abstain. 8-0-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. The next thing is our second read for the data governance manual and the technology plan. We were given this also last time and told to go through it, look through it, because they were pretty hefty documents.
I trust you read it cover to cover.
I did. How are you?
Yeah, looking for a motion tonight to reaffirm the data governance manual. Happy to answer any questions, or happy to have you just reaffirm. Or the board.
Make a motion to reaffirm the data governance manual.
A motion to have a second?
Second.
Second by Mark. Any discussion? All those in favor? Wait, Jack, did you have a question?
I just thought I'd trick everyone. This is a lot of work, and thank you very much. And I kept IT guys gainfully employed.
We didn't make any changes this year, so it wasn't a lot of work this year
Well,
when we developed it.
Still, I remember you started this from scratch when you came, right?
And I can't take full credit. I should have mentioned the Technology Advisory Committee is responsible for reviewing this every year and introducing changes. And
okay,
so it is a tremendous responsibility, and a lot of work implied, by that document.
Okay, we can vote now.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? And abstain. 8-0-0. And then the last one is the technology plan, which again, we spoke about this last time. And does anybody have any questions on this, or can we get a motion to affirm?
Sorry. I
Yeah,
just
no, go
have
ahead,
one
Shauna.
question. I did actually read this, but I don't know if... Only because I have to write one for work, too, so I was like, I might as well.
Not a reinvent the wheel.
Literally. Are there any bullet-pointed changes to this from the prior one that we need to be aware of that you want to highlight for us?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's the major change. There's a note in there around how we're looking at starting with elementary teachers to kind of change the model of instruction where they're going to teach classes trimester 1, traditional, if you will, technology classes, and then they're going to be moving into core classrooms to assist teachers with integration. And we're very excited about this, to be able to really help teachers with integrating technology into their lesson plans, into every subject. Technology is everywhere, as we know. Mm-hmm. And we're going to look at that model, and it's still developing it, and I think we're going to be growing as we implement it during the year. And we may in the future look at middle school as well. But that's probably the biggest in terms of affecting the students, I would say.
Great.
There's a bunch of all the other boring infrastructure stuff that gets me excited, but I don't think we want to be talking about that. But yeah, that's the one I'd like to highlight more than anything, I think.
Good. Thank you. Any other? You got one, Bree?
I was just noticing between appendix and L and M, there's just a blank page you might want to get rid of.
Oh, between what? I'm sorry?
Appendix L
okay.
and appendix
Thank you.
M.
I'll take that out. Thank you.
No other
It's an easy-
discussion. Could I please get a motion to affirm the technology plan?
So moved.
So moved by Shauna. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Kristen. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And abstain. 8-0-0. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Capital improvement projects are next. Come on down, Maria and Carl. Good evening.
Hi. So the Capital Improvement Plan Committee met actually before last school board meeting where you guys voted for the tennis courts, because obviously tennis courts are part of the list, but in their last meeting, they put together this list of recommendations for the 2024 budget, because we have that additional $1 million that we're going to spend, so they wanted to provide additional proposals for our fiscal 2024 capital expenses or projects. So, like I said, 488,000 of that list is for tennis courts, which you guys already approved. So that leaves a $975,000 list of projects that they are recommending for your review and your consideration for our capital expenditures.
Jack?
Yeah, so these are recommendations to assist the board. I'd look at them, chew on them a little bit. I'm also, Carl, if you could, I mean, obviously some of these things you'd have to get going in the first half of the fiscal year, and some things are behind. My always concern is that something jumps up and bites us that we don't understand is going on. And this chews it all up, and or at least most of it, right?
Actually, it'll leave just under, well, probably around $800,000.
So you know where I was going with that, making sure we have a
We will
contingency
still have
out there.
$800,000 that we could then go back to
Okay.
the CIP committee in the spring and say we have some more money to get rid of at the end of the year in case we have any left over.
Yep, and I'm not even talking about leftover. I'm like, what happens if a pipe breaks and we gotta go chase that around for a couple weeks in the dead of winter, right? So,
Valid point.
And
Yep.
they're done now.
Yeah, I that was just my only point in this. It's a recommendation to the board.
So this money's coming out of the CIP budget, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's basically to spend the additional $1 million that
comes out of
we
that.
added this year to the budget.
Free.
So I just have a question about the Sandown Central playground fence, only because there, from what I've heard, has been a lot of talk about not utilizing that building in the coming future. Yes, no? Is that wrong?
So,
I'm sorry.
yeah, I was gonna bring this up during new business, but if you wanna talk about it now,
Let's wait,
okay.
please.
Well, it pertains to St.
No, I know,
The
but just
Sandown
wait.
Central Playground is wide open into the woods and into the surrounding neighborhood, and apparently there has been some instances where kids just during play
It's a safety
recess
issue.
book off into the woods. So we just want to put a fence around the playground to keep them kind of
Runners.
corralled.
Gotta run
Fair
it.
enough.
Thank you for doing that, Carl.
Thank you for corralling.
Corralling children?
Keeping them safe.
That's right. We're trying to keep
Answers
them
that
safe,
question.
folks.
Thank you.
All right. Does anybody else have any other questions about, so these are just projects with the CIP funds that we budget for, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's to utilize the budgeted funds.
My only question is, when you say assessment of athletic fields, what does that entail?
So we've been asked by an athletic facilities committee, which met once or twice so far, and then again, it was brought up during the CIP committee, that we wanted, instead of just throwing money at fields, I mean, there's been a lot of discussion about what we can do to make the fields better as far as laying them out differently, the needs of the fields. So I've asked a company that we use for our assessments now, our field assessments, just for as far as agronomics, as the fertilizers and stuff that we use on the fields. They have a specialty division that comes and they will do an audit of your fields, audit every team that uses your fields, both in-house and out external users. They will go to your towns, and it depends on how big we want to go, but it's been the direction of the committees that I've been on, to go for not just this campus, but they want to look at the holistic communities, what fields are available and being used by the communities or in the communities from youth groups, our groups, whatever it needs, to figure out what we actually need. Do we need artificial turf? I don't know. These people will be able to tell us yes, and they'll be able to say where it would be most beneficial. There's some people that are going to scream that it should go on the football field. they might say, well, you get a lot more use out of it if you put it in the outfield of the baseball and make it a soccer baseball type of thing, or if you put it in another location, just a better location. So they will come in and they'll do that study and then give recommendations to us, and then we have an actual studied plan to move forward with data points on what we need to move forward and
So
for the
they
future.
gave you a quote of approximately $70,000 to come in and to,
Well, we would go out to bid for this, but and the initial was around 50, and then as we started adding stuff, it got more expensive. So what we would do is do the main campus and then add alternates for the additional information that we would want to see what we could get.
Just for history, 4 years ago, I asked for
some
this to
professional advice on it?
looking into what makes sense for our campuses, for our fields, for turf, not for turf. That's when these committees were supposed to be started. They were started, they stopped, they started, they stopped. So we're 4 years behind. We haven't looked at anything. We haven't done anything with improvements with our fields or figuring out what we should do, if they should be, again, maybe it makes sense to start moving your soccer field here, or we don't know that, because you have to look at the whole campus and whatnot and figure out what makes the most sense. Because going for any type of grants or whatnot for potentially turf or whatever, you can't do it until you know where it's got to go. So everything's really just kind of on hold, because there are all the concerns. I mean, some, does turf go on the football field and only be football? Soccer's a bigger field than football. You're not going to fit a turf field inside the new track now that will accommodate soccer. So if you're trying to do it to accommodate all your sports, you have to think of somewhere else. So
I agree. You said something about the towns, the town fields. Are you talking about a are you talking about the elementary fields and what are we talking about when we talk about town fields?
Yes, all of it.
Woodlock Field
Yep,
and all those?
they would look at that to see what the use of there is, and see if the youth programs that are using our fields are using it because of a certain reason, or if there's more use being done there and we're taking some of the pressure off of that, or vice versa. And they'll look at everything, the holistic use through the 4 towns, to see what would best be for our communities for the field use.
Jack, you're stewing over there. Go
And
ahead.
I am. And it would be add alternate to the original RFP. So when it came in, we'd be able to see, hey, if it's going to cost $20,000 to get this part of the study done, we could either say yes or no, or if it's going to be $100,000 more, then we can definitely say no.
Go ahead, Jack.
So we have a tremendous amount is the RFP already written?
We're in the middle of writing it.
Oh, okay. So I don't think you write an RFP unless you have a direction from this board to write the RFP. That's number one. Number two, we have so many resources between the 4 towns and the recreation. I've sat on these athletic committees for over 10, 15 years. I can tell you right away about the turf and what some of the obstacles are. So if you put it on the soccer field, you got to come in with lights. The football field already has lights. It's a flip of a coin where it belongs. If we can't get our athletic director, our facilities director, the recreation directors from every town, and the youth sports to coordinate and determine what we need, then I would rather spend the $70,000 on the teams and the children. We should at least give it a first go, and then if we get lost in the sauce, and we I can tell you, I've had a number of coaches sit on those teams and they get on those committees. They get so frustrated. They're like, sometimes it's just a waste of our time. But if you bring in, I've already talked to a couple of the rec department. One of them walks by my house every morning. They would fall over backwards. The selectmen would fall over backwards to try and coordinate and understand exactly what I have been saying for 5, 10 years. I approached the Care of Grounds guy and I said we should get the 4 towns in the room with the district and determine what we have, what's coming up, and what we're going to need. Because sometimes the resources are overused, sometimes they're underutilized, and I believe, like we talked earlier tonight, youth sports, we create programs. We shouldn't be creating teams. And those programs should be coordinated by sport. But to say where the turf is going to go, that's one of 2 options in my humble opinion. and reconfiguring the fields. I can show you 5 blueprints of things that we had kind of preliminarily came up with. It may just be as simple as a couple of relief fields. I understand the challenges that you have, Carl, but I am getting a little tired of every time we need to make a decision, we reach out to a consultant where those resources can go back to the kids, back to the staff, and stay within the district. The idea is keeping as many resources in the district without having them bleed out. And you know what? If we do it, we have a little bit of time and energy spent into it, and then if that doesn't work, then I wouldn't mind doing this. But not to give this a first shot, you have so many credible people in this district, parents, coaches, recreation leaders, selectmen that have been actively involved in this for years. I'm pretty strongly opposed to this.
Jack, are you making a motion to amend this?
No, this list is just a list of recommendations. This isn't it isn't even, I think, a list to be approved tonight. I don't think there's an action to be taken. There is? Well, then what I would do, but if you listen to the people that developed the CIP, and I was one of them, this document was supposed to be a recommendation for the board, kind of a guideline as to what to follow to pass on to Carl, to work to be done. And that's why I said originally at the beginning of this, Carl, you may want to identify those things that you're going to be doing earlier on in the year versus later on, so we have a little bit of flexibility if we decide we want to change our minds on something. This, in my estimation, was supposed to be a guide, recommendations,
Well,
and
let's let I see everything you're saying,
Yeah.
valid points, but let's let Maria talk for, I think she was wanting to say something. Maybe she'll be able to answer some of your questions, so.
I just wanted to add to what you said. If the plan is going forward to seek as much grants as we need, you cannot have the community do an assessment of our field's needs in
Say
order
that-
to apply
say that
for a
again?
grant.
So you need to have some.
So
The state grants, the federal grants that we just got for the track, going
Right.
forward, they want a field plan. And it's not just something that we throw together, it's something that has to be studied and be thoughtfully put together. It's
we
not
s-
something we can
did
just
we
throw
study
together.
do we study the tennis courts?
We're not getting a grant for
No,
that.
but
we
we're
didn't go
applying,
for a
wait a
grant,
minute,
though.
we're applying for a grant for that.
No, we are not.
I thought we were applying for a grant.
No,
for
we
that.
approved that, but you can't put something in your budget and then go for a grant. That's like supplanting
I'd go
funds. You
back
can't do
and-
that.
I'll go back and look at the meeting. I
So-
thought it said we could put it in.
So, but
later on.
what I'm hearing though is that in order to apply for grants, you have to have a company come in and do a study before you're allowed to apply for the
We have
grants.
to have a plan.
Right.
you have to have a plan, right, and it's a certified plan. I mean, I appreciate the effort of utilizing available resources within the community, but there are certain things that,
So-
and it doesn't mean that, okay,
hold on,
we
hold
don't, if we just want to fund these things through the budget, that's fine, and we can have the community doing this assessment.
So if the school district, through the community, we put together that committee, came up with a plan, that wouldn't qualify for the grant?
Not really, because it's.
No,
Well,
for
not really,
professional.
yes, I mean, that's,
I don't think so.
well, let's
said
find
certified plan?
out.
Mark, go ahead. No, Mark, go ahead.
You said we needed a certified plan to apply for the grants. What does certified mean? Who certifies
So
it?
there are companies that specialize in doing this. It's like an architect
Okay.
making a plan of a building.
So it has to be a recognized company with some sort of certification that looks at it, provides a plan in order for us to go for the grant. That's what you're saying?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So in other words, if we want you to go after these grants, then we need to do this.
Mostly, yes. That's my point.
Don, go ahead. Hold on,
I'm
let him
just
go.
confused a little bit, because I look at it in terms of, okay, we're doing an assessment, but kind of a global piece. Grants are usually more focused. You're not doing a grant for multiple projects. You're doing a grant, basically one project at a time that's related to grants that are available. So this gives, I think, something you could look at for what the district need is going to be, then you would prioritize that and go after grants. Having that study done, give us something to make some decisions from. And then from there, we would have more questions, more things to consider. And, be getting started on the things that we can get answers for and have the funds figured out for. But this isn't about getting all those things done. This is about coming up with, basically a professional opinion on, best way to go about, meeting the needs of our district and defining what they are. So it sounds like that's what you're telling me.
Yes, it would be like somebody coming in do a building study to see the space needs and then figuring out what you need for building needs instead of having the community come in and telling us what you think you need.
Sorry. We're talking about a couple of fields. I mean, 70K? I'd rather give it to those girls on the lacrosse team.
Is it just the athletics field and this campus, like the up here? Or
So the main portion of the RFP would be for just this main campus, and then we would go for add alternates for our 4 community school fields. Then there would be an add alternate to see if we wanted to include the town fields. So it's not all or nothing. We would be able to pick and choose based on the funds available and what we feel is a need.
But that $70,000 is for the district, not just this campus. No, it's not. I'm sorry.
It's just a budgetary number.
It's a placeholder.
It's a placeholder.
Oh, it's a placeholder. Okay,
When we go
okay.
out to bid, we don't know how much.
I don't know how much.
Oh,
it's gonna
I
be.
see.
It could be as little as 40, and it could be as much as 100. I
I'm
really
sorry,
don't
I
know,
missed
but
that
it's
part.
just kind of a placeholder.
Okay.
Can you go ahead and look on the grants and see what the notice of funding opportunities are? And normally when you do those grants, they tell you, lay it out like what you need for them. So are you able to go on there and look right now,
I
or?
just know for the additional tennis court, if we were going to throw that on there, they would have wanted a plan in place, and that was from Angelo. I didn't look it up. Angelo was in charge of that grant. But he said you would have not needed a plan for it.
Didn't Angelo, if I remember that conversation correctly, everyone sat here and said, we're not guaranteeing you we can get the grant, but we're going to look into getting the grant. And Angelo kept saying that over and over again. That's why I thought, although I'm not counting on that grant money, it was a possibility. And I think if we go back and watch the meeting,
No.
that's exactly what you're going to hear.
No, he said he would look into it, but if we wanted to encumber those funds, we had to.
No, we had to move forward.
Right,
and the
and we could
grant.
not, once we did that and moved forward, we could not pursue the grant.
That's
Yeah,
exactly
And we
right.
chose to
No,
move
that's-
forward.
He said?
That's what he said.
Yeah, that's what he says, and that is true. If you have something earmarked in your budget, you can't then go out for a grant for that. It's called supplanting funds. You cannot do that. So that was what we were set. Well, that was what our dilemma last time, is that do we go ahead and what Angelo stated, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kristen, because I think you were here for that too. But it was the grant even the reason that we got the grant was because for community, right? It wasn't
Yep.
really so much about the teams and
That's what
stuff
he
like
said.
that. So
Yep. It had nothing to do with the
Right,
tennis
and he's-
courts or the
right, and he
teams.
said he could pursue that exact same reasoning, but there was no guarantee, but
Exactly.
then we would not be,
But then we're talking
And
about
we're
time.
pushing
without-
off
we were
a
talking
year
about
or
the
so,
times and
right.
everything else and pushing it out and no guarantee. And the fact that if we wanted to encumber those funds, once we encumbered them, we were committed to the project.
Well,
Once we committed, we could not get a grant.
This study doesn't get us any grants. Coming up with a plan and saying we're going to move forward with it, that's when you submit the grant. This doesn't get us any grants. It gives
No,
us.
it doesn't get you grants, but it gives you the background that when a grant comes available, you already have the study ready to go because you've done the study, so you have
No,
this.
no.
That could be then used for whatever field or whatever situation you need it that way.
Don't you have to come?
That's the logic of this.
It's a prerequisite. in
And
order to
again,
apply
I
for the
guess
grant.
my big question is, if we did the study ourselves,
It wouldn't be certified.
but we're not sure that that's a prerequisite of this. That's kind of.
We'll get a confirmation on that.
Yeah,
It
you
seems
get a
like this is
confirmation
a-
on it.
Depends on the
It's that
grant.
simple.
I mean, I cannot tell you every single grant that pertains to fields or athletic fields requires a certified grant. It depends if it's federal, it depends if it's from the state, it depends if it's from the recreation department, it depends if.
well, we know the
And we
current
don't have a
grant.
grant person here in the district that.
Well, we know the current grant that the track had required a plan, so why don't we get that first and see what would unify as like the plan for the certification? That
Did
seems,
it require a plan because it was a replacement?
well, he
It's
just
not renewed.
said that Angelo stated that it
No, he
did
said
require a
the
plan.
Tennis court.
Tennis
the
courts
tennis
hitting on
courts.
for the grant, whatever, so figure out what the language is.
Yeah.
What is the criteria for a plan? So, Maria, can I ask you a different question? Yes. So this 1.4 that we're looking at right now,
is being funded from where?
The capital budget.
So the tennis court's in there, but we pulled the tennis courts from,
This year, so,
that really shouldn't be in there.
no. And
Capital
like
budget for next year for this is
1.8.
1.8. So that really, we're right at 1 at this point. This is for next year, though, so we don't need to approve this tonight or take action on this tonight. Is there a reason to take action tonight?
It will only help if we can start some of the projects in the summer. It will help us
That-
to order.
some of the
Well,
fire
I'm
panels
looking
take
at
6.
some of I'm just looking at some of these, I mean, clearly it's the first time we're seeing them. And I know they're placeholder numbers. I mean, and again, I'm sure they're in the CIP and they're there, but I don't have that document in front of me right now. And I'm sitting here and I'm looking at things like, I mean, for ask more questions, replacement of the maintenance van. Is that something that needs to be done this year? I mean, this is a long conversation,
Yeah.
each of these items, and we can definitely, if this has to be done, then we do it tonight, but I'm just looking at the length of this agenda and each of these things. I mean, replacement of a Kubota tractor. Which tractor, why is our tractor done? I mean, does it have to be done this year? I mean, where are we at? So,
With the amount of projects that we passed in the voting, it cleared up this year's full line. So we were reaching out into the future years to move some of those things up. And they asked my opinion on things that need to be done. Fire panels, they were newly added because we just didn't, I did the EEI audit of the facilities, and they came up with 4 fire panels that were in really bad shape and you can't get parts for anymore. So if they break now, we're out without fire protection in the buildings. So we thought that would be something to move, I thought that would be something to move up into this year. The maintenance van is scheduled for, if not next year, it's the year after, and we might as well just move that up there to get it in there. As far as projects go, HVACs are all taken care of, roofs are going to be all taken care of. The things on the CIP list are really, if it's not in the next couple of years, it's far out, and these are items that I think need to be done. The Kubota tractor is in rough shape. We've spent probably $5,000 just repairing it this year. We had to replace the wheels on it because the rims were rusting off of it. That's how.
So, but my question, and we've talked about things like when we've had some other things before. So what's the plan with the current maintenance van? I mean, selling it, what's the revenue? Will we get any revenue from that and from the Kubota?
We added 2 new maintenance positions to the budget. So we are going to hire 2 new maintenance guys. So the thought behind that was, since it's at 2016, yes, it's old, but we can keep that one. Update, the replacement was for next year, so if we can advance it in 1 year, we can keep that van for one of the new people and then have the new one to replace for one, because we're gonna have two more maintenance guys that will need to move.
Okay, and I'm just, and then how's that gonna impact the budget? Because now we're adding another vehicle to the fleet. I mean, now we have more maintenance, now we have other things, and we're pulling on a new vehicle, so.
Right, so probably the plan will be the older van, we'll keep it like around the main campus and Atkinson and Pollard, which is not long distance. And then the newer vans will travel to Sandown and Danville, or will.
So I agree with Kristen that this is each one of these could easily take up some things. I know you said that it would be nice to have this approved tonight because you need to move forward on some of the projects. Our next meeting after this one isn't till July 20th, I believe. So of these that are on here, which ones would you need approval of tonight to be able to move forward with? Or so I'm saying, can we approve some tonight that we're comfortable with and then have another discussion later? That way we can just have more information.
I think the walk-in fridge needs to be added.
Which actually, this one was for Atkinson Academy, but just after this was done, Danville Elementary is walk-in fridge.
So we have 2 walk-in fridges that need to be replaced right now. I would also recommend that if we want to get it done this summer, I would love to get the irrigation going. Our irrigation is lacking across the facility. We had a study of all our irrigation out there that gave us recommendations, and I'd like to move forward with getting those in so that we can get our athletic fields maintained the way they're supposed to be. and the fire alarm panels.
Right.
And I would go along with the sand down central fence. My only problem is if we don't replace the Kubota tractor, it could cost more in the future, number one. Number two, it could break next year and we're without something to move snow with in the winter or even do things on our athletic fields. That's how we spread and run most of our equipment on the athletic field, so.
So you don't have a walk-in fridge at Danville now, instead of just,
We do, it's falling apart. We tried to get a replacement part for it and they said it wouldn't even fit on it because the door is so bad. The thing is so
I'm gonna
bad.
let Jack and then Kim.
Okay, so I want to explain the process a little bit because even though Carl and I may disagree a few times a month, the methodology here was we leaned on Carl a lot for recommendations. And what we did is when moving stuff up, we looked at safety items first and then things that were in total disrepair second. So there was a real methodology as to how we move these things up. It wasn't willy-nilly, hey, this is a little less or that's a little more. So this wasn't just throwing stuff out there against the wall and seeing what stuck. What you'll see is mostly, even when it comes to the irrigation, we had a slight conversation as well. If we may be reconfiguring the fields, does it make sense to wait? But then when you really look at the cost of reconfiguring irrigation, it's not a major task. So it wasn't that it was a complete in-depth conversation, but it was pretty logical as to the approach. And I mean, Kyle has working knowledge of, the walk-in freezers feeling. And you actually, I think you showed us pictures of them, didn't you?
I did not.
No, that was at the construction meeting we saw that, right? So, yeah, I mean, the fencing, that at Sandown, that's a safety issue. That should be at the top of the hit parade as far as I'm concerned, right? So I just want to give you an idea of how that.
That's fine. I'm going to let Kim, and then we're going to move along a little bit.
The Danville Elementary walk-in fridge isn't in here, is it?
no.
No,
Okay, so is it?
it happened after this.
Oh, it did. Okay.
It's something that we can always move into the CIP process or capital improvement budget. Since I have to replace it, I would go ahead and just add it to the CIP process with your permission.
And one more thing, I just think it's fair to say that when you sit on a committee and you put all the time and effort into sitting on the committee, and Jack and Maria and Carl went through every single thing that they went through, knowing that they would have to come here, I believe that they put a lot of thought into what would come up and what would be needed. And when I sit on a committee and I put in all that work and I put in all that thought, I will come to you all, and I hope that you would respect. I mean, questions for sure, and it is an enormous amount of money. But like Jack said, there's a process that they went through to put these things on this list. So that's the only point I wanted to make.
All right.
I don't think we need a final answer tonight. If you guys take your time, or if you want to approve some of them and not some others.
Well, so I appreciate what Kim said as far as that. I understand that you guys put a lot of work into this, but I also see what other members say and say there is a lot of stuff that we, again, could spend each on every one of them on questions with it. So what I would suggest is that we go ahead and approve the walk-in fridge replacement. We go ahead and,
Atkinson and Danville.
And it's Atkinson and Danville. Approve for the irrigation system stuff because you've already done that study. You already know. I know what you're saying, Jack, but I think just go ahead and do with that. And to do the fire alarm panel replacement, both of those, and the sprinkler heads.
By the way, I agree with the irrigation thing.
Okay, yeah. And then the rest of the stuff, because like the Kubota tractor, like, do you already know what you're looking for, and what would you go after for, and again, and everything like that. So
we even, as it spoke to the Kubota tractor, we even talked about varying pieces of equipment that potentially could mitigate some labor cost. I mean, so it wasn't just, hey, let's get a new one of these.
There's a good deal of discussion to it, right?
Okay. All right.
Is the replacement Kubota something that you clearly you're talking about you need it. I'm not saying you don't. But is it something,
if we don't approve it tonight?
right, I mean, like, do you need it for this summer, or is like what you have going to get you through a point? I mean, that's what I'm just trying to figure out.
The problem is we don't know. The Kubota tractor is a very old tractor. It's been here for many years, and it's it was in disrepair. We spent a lot of money to get keep it running this year. And it's costing us more money.
So, and is that something like cars these days you still can't get when you want? Is it going to be a back order that you're going to order it and have to wait months, or are these things that are available, what you're looking at?
Right now, they're in stock. I drive by MB Tractor every day on the way to work, and
They
there's
drool,
tractors
they
right
drool,
out
they
front.
drool.
It's just staring at you.
The man store.
They are in stock. Hopefully, they're still in stock in the fall. I don't foresee them running out.
So,
But I do recommend that we get this before the winter.
so
Sooner
I'm
than
going to make
later.
a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
And it's on the CIP plan to replace, and
Yep,
it kept
understand.
being pushed out, and now we have an open space, so I thought it would be a nice thing to move in.
Yep, sounds good. Go ahead, Kristen.
I'm going to make a motion for the time being that we approve the Atkinson and Danville fridge replacements for both. The fire and sprinkler heads for Danville Elementary, the high school, middle school, and Pollard.
And
The
panels.
huh?
And panels.
And panel, yes, the fire panels and the sprinkler heads. The irrigation at the high school, and, right, it's just the three at the high school, those three things for irrigation related to the high school.
Yes.
And I'm gonna add the Kubota tractor to it.
Yep.
I understand what we're saying about the sand down fence, but not knowing what we're gonna do with everything else, and to me, you place somebody out by the woods. I mean, we have staff, and for the time being, I think we can do that. So I don't see spending $50,000 right now out there.
Just yet.
So,
Yep.
just not right now.
Okay. So I have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Kim. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And abstained. 800. Thank you, guys.
I have a question for Carl, and maybe for the board, maybe a motion. Carl, you still,
Yes, I'm
Carl,
listening.
you still are searching for help, correct?
Yes,
And you're struggling with that, correct?
absolutely.
Does it make sense that, in the past, we have reached out and put an RFQ out, and we actually had people, companies come in and cut our grass or care of grounds? Would that help you alleviate some of the pressure you have now? And my opinion on that is, we pay people X, and I think those companies, even after their marginal profit, may be a little bit more efficient. And if you put it on an RFQ, at least we can compare. And then if you still are having problems with staffing, this will alleviate that problem. So would you be opposed to putting on an RFQ for that, and how does the rest of the board feel?
I would not be opposed to it.
You wouldn't? That would help you.
If the staffing levels the way, the staffing issues that we're having right now, I mean, yeah, I would not be opposed to it at all.
Pleasure of the
I think it's a
board.
good idea.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to put on an RFQ. Do you want that for care of grounds or just cutting the grass?
Just cutting the grass.
Just cutting the grass?
We have a groundskeeper. We have one groundskeeper position open.
So to put on an RFQ to cut the grass, just on this campus? Or within the district? Let's do the district.
We
For
can
the
do
district.
both. We can do one
Okay.
and then add,
You draw it up.
add alternate.
Second that.
Motion's been made. Second. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And abstained. 800. All right. Thank you, guys. The next thing on the list is our tuition rates. Maria?
So I'm just presenting the tuition rates for next year. Our preschool will be at $2,200 annually. That's not going up. It's the same rate that it was in the past. Pre-kindergarten will be $2,200 a year. The half-day kindergarten is a free program, and the full-day kindergarten will be $4,500. Those are not increasing. For the out-of-district tuition rates, is basically a formula that we do. We take in account our ADM, and we also take into account the state per pupil cost, and we basically increase it by the amount that our budget was increased.
Okay.
So it's just a formula that we utilize for the out-of-district.
I make a motion to accept the fiscal year 2024 tuition rates presented to the school board on June 15th, 2023.
I have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Second by Jack. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed and abstained. 800. Thank you. And then annual federal funding authorization. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We have it?
Yeah, it's policy, yeah.
Oh, it's that. Okay. I was like, is this what this is?
Which policy is that again?
Daft, yeah. Well, I know what it said here, and I was looking at my tab, and I was like, where is it?
This just authorizes our admin team, right?
To seek and receive
To
grants.
seek and receive grants.
All right. Do you want to make that motion, Sean?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to
Approve the DAF.
approve the
Oh, here you go.
policy GAF. Wait a minute, hold on, sorry.
Suggested motion language.
That's
There
what
you
I was
go.
looking for. I make a motion to authorize the superintendent, assistant superintendent, and business administrator to apply for and receive, on behalf of the district, federal and state grants and funding, and to file such authorization with the New Hampshire Department of Education.
Second.
Seconded by Bree. Motion by Shauna. Any other discussion?
Go, go, go.
All those in favor? Opposed and abstained. 800. Budget transfer, Maria.
Okay, so this is the budget transfer that I'm requesting to cover all the projects that had been discussed and approved by you guys. As you know, we have the boilers and the track, which are the ones that I have been telling you. We just need to encumber them so we can start the project because we don't get refund until the end of the project, so.
Okay.
If you see down the list, I have the track, the
Track boilers.
boilers track, the water heater, which was
Yep.
also approved by you guys, the tennis courts, which was approved, the Atkinson Academy and the panels were already approved as part of the capital, and then I have the 2 freezers because I know there was a conversation with the superintendent and the
Yep.
board before the CIP was done. So I put $80,000 for both of the freezers, for
Okay.
2 freezers. And the accounts above are where I identified we can move the funds from.
Okay.
So that's.
Can I get a motion, please?
I'll make the motion to accept those budget transfers in the amounts and accounts specified in the CFO BA's budget transfer request dated June 15th, 2023.
Motion to have a second.
Second it.
Second by Kristen. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed and abstained. 800. Encumbrance.
So the encumbrances are, for the RSA, any, at the end of any fiscal year, obviously all the appropriations lapse. When we have projects that we have started over 1 year and they continue on onto the following year, we request the school board to approve us to encumber those POs, those purchase orders into the following year so we can finish those projects and pay in full for them. So this is the list of the projects that we right now have ongoing that haven't been finished, and we are going to finish them most likely this summer.
Okay.
At the end of the summer or beginning of the fall. So I need to encumber those funds.
Okay. So these are projects that you've already started and you just need.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of them are the ones that, well, all of them obviously we have approved, but.
Okay, yeah. So could I get a motion, please? From someone?
I make a motion that we encumber the funds in the amount of $5,420,198 for the projects that are presented on the list to us tonight from the VA's office.
Got a motion to have a second?
Second.
Second by Dawn. Any further discussion?
Just a question. Is the tractor included in this now?
No.
Should it be?
The tractor?
I thought we just voted.
No,
on
that's something different.
Something different.
That's for next year.
Yep, that's something
Okay.
different.
I
No,
know
these are projects that we've already
it's the same
approved.
I saw,
and
I
then-
saw walk-in freezer and.
This is super confusing, it is. So the tractor and the list of, the new list,
Okay.
that's gonna be with funds from next year. This is from
There
funds
is some
from this
overlap,
year.
yes.
All right, any other questions? Those
I
are
have
the-
a question.
Yep, Kim, go ahead.
Well, maybe we have to vote on this first, Because I had a question about the unencumbered funds.
Right, so, okay, yeah, so, do you have any other questions for her for this? All those in favor? Opposed? And abstained, 800. All right, Kim.
Unencumbered funds. We took, it was, I think, 1.3, and we took 400 out, 488 for the tennis courts.
Yes. So, as I mentioned before, doing a projection before the year ends is very complicated because there are so many things at play, right? We don't know who is going to retire, how many people we have retiring, how long they had been here, how many people are resigning, how many sick buyouts we have to pay out. So there's so many things. So I like usually to wait until the last school board meeting to say, okay, we have entered pretty much everything that we possibly can, knowing that it's going to be obviously more. So we had entered all of the payroll items, which is actually close to $1 million this year. And then we had entered all the invoices that we had received so far. Obviously, there are plenty of other invoices that we will be receiving over the summer to be paid with this money this year. Also, our director of special education had met with the superintendent and the assistant superintendent, and they went through the special education POs that we have open and the services that we are still have to pay for June. So between all those things, we have identified additional funding that is not going to be utilized. So I have given you the $1.3 million. We use about $500K of that, leaving $800,000, and we have identified another $1.5 million among all those things that I told you: attrition savings, special education, all these things is another $1.5 million. So I am now projecting that we will end up the year with about $2.3 million in surplus.
Excuse me, after the 400,000 got taken out?
Yep.
Yeah.
Would I be out of order to suggest that we put some of that money towards teachers for the pressure points in our schools?
So we cannot use that money for positions, for personnel, because those are, we can use that money for one-time expenses. So that money belongs to this year, and the vote is appropriated for this year. If we hire somebody, that's a perpetual obligation that we have, right? So if you give a contract to someone, whether they stay for 1 year or 6 years, that's a perpetual obligation that we incurred.
That would have to come out of next year's
So,
budget.
like the tennis courts, that's a one-time expense. We pay for it and we're done.
Yeah.
When we hire somebody, you're not done. That's a perpetual.
How can we then spend that money in the best way to support the teachers in those pressure point situations?
Hold on. Happy faces, hold on.
Is that a question for Justin? Is that a question for Maria? Where do we, I'm still really stuck on those pressure points.
I thought we.
You can't use these funds
area,
for it.
but it's probably Sandy and Justin's area. But I thought we were all set with teachers and academic positions, and are we not?
I think there's concern over as we continue to talk about enrollment, specifically at elementary level, and we talk about pressure points, and we look at projecting out. That's what I hear you saying. That's what I hear Bree nodding.
So.
But what I'm hearing from you is that the money can only be used for a one-time
Yeah.
type of payment, and it can't be used in something
Because
that
it's
would be
not
in
part of next
perpetuity.
year's budget. We cannot use it for that because it's a one-time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It won't carry on.
So even though it's good discussion and good stuff, it is not an agenda item, so I'm gonna let Bree, did you have a question or something you were wanting to say, or? Okay, I'm gonna let her say something and then we're gonna move on because we got other agenda items.
A one-time purchase would be solar panels. That would save our taxpayers money, and maybe we could use that savings to open up a position for new
That
faculty.
actually will be a one-time purchase. Yeah. We actually, I don't know if
Jack,
we're
do you
gonna
wanna weigh in on it?
discuss that in.
Well, we're gonna, like I said, this is not an agenda item currently, so I get it, but
I-
Jack, say one thing and then we're moving.
That's the 10th time you've said that.
I know, but then it moves so well, so go ahead.
So during the construction meeting, the architect reviewed the entire campus, inside and out. Thank you, Carl. Carl, what are the opportunities? I mean, you look at some of the cabinetry in the art rooms and in the science labs. It's deplorable, it's ugly, it's gross. But Carl, you know better, for lack of a better term, the pressure points and the things that are most debilitated that, again, if we spend some of this undesignated fund balance, I like it to be something the kids have direct. By the way, Kim, I agree with funding that. So could we possibly, and you're going to have this in and done by June 30th.
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way. I would have to get designs and engineering done. There's no way I can do any of those things.
Sign contract for cabinetry.
However, we did get a solar proposal at the construction meeting as well, and it would be approximately a $3 million purchase. However, we would get
$1 million back from the government.
$1 million back from the government due to the IRA, and as such, our energy payouts would decrease from $270 to by almost $175,000, which would put us in the positive of almost $100,000, which would pay for the purported.
Yeah, it would be a good thing, but
That's to answer your question, and unfortunately, Jack, with such short notice, there's no way we could do
that's
that.
what I understood, but I wanted to ask one more time because that, to me, was a more fiscally doable and acceptable thing. And the other thing around the solar panels with the $1 million we would get from the federal government, and you guys can answer this because there was a couple different trains of thought. What I don't want to lose is that funding, but I think we're fairly confident that that would exist for the next couple of years. Maria, I don't want
any confidence in any government funding.
And this is all good discussion, and I don't mean to cut it off, but we need to move on to the next. Well, you can finish, but we need to move on to the next
Without that
thing.
$1 million, then it becomes a little less feasible and a little less palatable.
Yep.
Thank you.
No, good points.
Yeah.
So, all right, thank you guys very much. All good discussion questions.
One thing that the last thing I wanted to say is tonight is the last night that you guys can let me know what you want to do with the unassigned fund balance, because we don't have another meeting until July. So.
Well, we can always have an emergency meeting if we need to.
Sure.
So.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Maria. Next thing is strategic plan.
So you got, again, a strategic plan in front of you. This is going to be a really brief recap. This is the product of maybe 15 people's work that led up to January, divided into a smaller group who did the actual writing based upon the work of those 15 people, put it out to the community and the staff for some input. Had a first read here at the board. After that, we had met with Bree and kind of had an hour session there. We also had an open work session this past Monday with some additional board members, and the full bucket leader team got back together. Some additional conversation and input, and then the product from that meeting is here in front of you again for a second read tonight.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to put the strategic plan forward.
It's a second read.
As a second read, sorry.
Got a motion of a second?
Second.
Who seconded it?
Maybe.
Don. Ooh. Motion by Don. Do you have any discussion?
Just on the table of contents.
Yeah, go
There's
ahead,
just
Bree.
some extra commas. I would just delete those.
Okay. And then extra commas, and then Jack, did you have a question?
Well, I get a couple comments.
Okay.
As you know, first of all, I'd like to apologize to the committee and the board for not being here on Monday, seeing I drove that workshop because I had a number of questions, but unfortunately, I had a family /
Oh, you had a valid excuse.
work
You're good.
obligation.
Go ahead.
So, well, I wanted to extend an apology for that. I will probably be abstaining from this vote tonight, and it's out of no disrespect of the committee, all its hard work. Like I said, I've sat on a bunch of those committees, and nothing's worse than have someone come in on Monday morning quarterback, which you do. So that is not, I went to a wake not too long ago, and the priest said at the beginning they had a mass at the end of the wake, and he goes, in the end, we all want the same thing. And I believe everyone on this board all wants the same thing in the end.
Okay.
I will briefly give you, I have many questions about the social and emotional learning part of this. I feel like we are revisiting and restructuring how we approach the paths we go down education every 2 or 3 years. And it's like once the staff gets its feet on the ground, it's like, okay, let's change all of this. There's a lot of stuff in here about training and investing, and there's nothing in here on how we're going to fund it. There's nothing in here that quantifies that. And again, it's a lot of hard work, and I completely understand what everyone did. Climate and culture. I think we should be doing, again, I touched base briefly on the athletics. I think if we're dedicated to improve the social and emotional needs of students, I think we should look at things like, cell phones, discipline, drugs. Those are things we should be addressing that assist in that. That doesn't take a lot of money. It takes a lot of commitment. And then the other thing that I'm concerned about is during the pandemic and prior to it, and my wife was a school teacher. I have a ton of friends that are school teachers and administrators. They are overworked. They have a ton of stuff on their plate, and a lot of stuff in here just, in my opinion, I'm not an educator, puts more on their plate. I ran on the platform of facilities, safety, and getting back to the blocking and tackling of math, English, science. And I feel as though, I took an education course in college. I took many education courses in college, and education for the first 250 years was school, family, and faith. It was kind of a three-legged stool. And I feel almost like all three legs are kind of cracked. Not broken, but cracked. So I want to dive into this more. I've reached out to a lot of folks and asked for help, and I've asked for opinions. Justin, there's no one I respect more than you in this entire, no offense, Justin, but I really like that.
Hey, Jack.
Well, we hear.
Yeah. So, with that said, I just wanted to give you a reason for my abstention. It is out of no lack of respect. I just can't
No, we get it.
go there at this point in time. And I'm willing to sit down with anyone at any time and get a better understanding of all of this, but
Yep.
I'm struggling with some of this.
Yep,
So.
and like I think Justin stated last meeting, that this is a fluid document, so even though that we accept this for a second read, it is subject to change, so it's not something that's set in stone. It just kind of gives them a plan that they can kind of finally move forward on, so. But we have a motion and a second on this. Bree?
Were we adding the appendix at the end? Or the
Glossary.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Anybody else? All right, all those in favor? Opposed and abstained, 701. All right, the next thing on our list is exit interview report. Fran, come on down.
I feel like I'm on The Price is Right.
I know, right?
So actually, I did want to share with you, so I know you guys got a couple of the graphs, and I'm going to give kind of a high-level view right now. One of the things I did want to hand out, because it was a little bit confusing, is, and I'll hand it out now, but I'm not going to get into talking about it right at the moment, are some of the reasons why people selected for why they left. So I'm just going to pass these around really quickly, if you guys don't mind.
Yep, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So basically, if you look at my summary, we have sent out, thanks, Dean. The love microphones. We sent out about 89 and I've gotten about 40 back, which actually I don't think is really bad. Usually 25% on a survey is pretty good, really. I will say of late that I've had quite a few people want to have actually exit interviews in person. That is one of their choices. So I've met with quite a few of late, which is great. Get some really great information. We did also share this with SLT the other day. Again, very high level discussion. And so there are some areas that we definitely want to drill down and get some more information on, talk maybe during some of our summer TILAs, and come up with some of the strategies to address some of the concerns that we're seeing. What I can say is that nothing in the exit interviews, when you look at the charts I sent you, I don't think anything's going to really surprise us. Pretty much what we thought.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for getting this information. I know we had asked for it to see, so thank you for that. Anybody have any questions for Fran? This is just informational. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for this.
Thanks, Fran.
Thank you, Fran. All right. The next thing is school board goals. So I do not have them tonight, and one of the reason for that is it's been in the works for a couple weeks, talking with Kim for our getting a rep from the New Hampshire School Board Association to come and do a class with us, like
Yeah.
a workshop. So I'll go let you talk about it a little bit, and then talk about how this ties in with our school board goals.
So since the board is so new, and I always, we could learn a lot from having an interaction with someone instead of watching the webinars. I've been in contact with the New Hampshire School Board Association to come and do a workshop with us. And they can talk whatever it is that we think is the most important, right to know, school board goals, anything that really, you've seen all the webinars, anything that we really want to touch on, they'll be happy to come in and talk with us. So it was my thought that we could put our school board goals into that workshop and workshop with the New Hampshire School Board Association person. And that he said that they're available like the 10th of July, anytime after that, if we wanted to come in on like a Monday evening and kind of talk about what are, the structure of our goals, and they'll work with us on that and any other topics that the board thinks that they would benefit from hearing about. You can email Katie or myself, and we'll put that on the agenda also.
Bree?
Is this included, is this included in our subscription cost?
It is.
Maria, did you?
If I can suggest something to the Department of Education, the Finance Office of the Department of Education I have asked them if they will be willing to come and give you like an overview of the adequacy aid, how does the formula work, because you all are most of you are pretty new.
Yeah.
If you want to consider that, I have asked and they have said yes. Just
Cool.
let them know when.
That would be great.
That'd be
Thank you,
great.
Maria.
So, but within talking with Kim, and we just really got some information, is that okay with the board to do that? We can talk about our goals. I feel like it's better to be able to collaborate and have a one-on-one than me just getting stuff from each and every one of you and trying to explain it, and then having that rep come in.
It's so much more productive.
Okay. All right, well, then I'll be moving, we should be able to do this in
July 10th, anytime before our July 20th meeting would be great. So I'll put some dates out. Maybe we could do like a survey or something and
Yeah.
see what dates work for everybody, and
Okay.
Certainly invite
whoever,
the board
yeah.
and whoever, like the administrators that need to come or whatever.
Okay, yeah, so we'll do that. That way we can have these voted on by the July 20th. That way it gives the super time to align their goals with our goals and stuff and move forward. So, all right, great, thank you. So we'll put out some dates soon, so. All right, moving on is policies.
So the board just has 3 for a first read tonight and 1 for a second read. The changes and recommendations are kind of outlined for you in that second column of the sheet. Most of them are clerical, and all of them are kind of based upon the New Hampshire School Board model policies.
Okay. So we just have policy AC, BEDH, and EF for a first read.
Correct.
Okay. And you said it's really just clerical errors and just like updating with the New Hampshire School Board language?
Yep, so the
Okay.
non-discrimination one, it says there, the legal had reviewed it and made some suggested edits that you'll see reflected there.
Okay.
There was a change of law in terms of how that 30 minutes of delegates and individuals' time must be allocated and protected. So there's changes that reflect that. And then really the last one for food service was simply the sample policy language.
Okay.
I make a motion to move those three policies for first read.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And abstain. And then is KF for a second read?
It is.
Okay.
It is for the second read.
Okay. And what is KF?
And again, it just includes language as suggested by the board last time that the superintendent would continue to have the right to waive a 2-week admission period.
I'll like to make a motion to approve that for the second read,
All right.
please.
Got a motion to have a second?
Second.
Second by Shauna. Any other discussion?
One real fast.
Yeah.
How enforceable is this policy? And I only asked that having come to the meeting a little bit early. One of our fields was being utilized by an organization that I think we wouldn't have had a hard time with. But my understanding, he left the building. is this organization had been using it. They were told, hey, you shouldn't be here. You need to get you put in a request, and the coach that was there said, yeah, I don't deal with that. The professional organization does. And so Carl was in the uncomfortable position of saying, yeah, make certain they put the request in. Sure, we'll do it. It wasn't done. They're still playing in the field. So how enforceable is this? It's an organization that we would all encourage and want, and it's good to see them there. But what do we have?
Our initial recourse is to reach for organizations who are not abiding by the policy and make a good faith effort to try to talk to them around why that exists, how it helps us to manage not only like the better procurement of the fuels, but the actual use of them. What happens if 3 teams are showing up?
Right.
For one kind of thing. So that's a reason that there's a process in place. So that's the first step is a phone call and
Has that? Are you aware of the situation I'm talking about?
No, I'm not.
Okay, we'll talk after. Yep.
Okay. No, that's not.
I didn't think that was the policy.
No, it was
Just
something
wondered where-
related, but yeah.
He's always off on some.
That's kind of the pot calling the kettle black. All right, there's been a motion, a second, to move this along for second read. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And abstain. 8-0-0. All right, and that is all of our policies, right? Yes. And then suspension authorization. This seems to be something that we just have to do every year,
So the
correct?
reauthorization every year, essentially, it continues to authorize the superintendent to continue suspensions beyond 10 days, which are typically the purview of the building principal.
Okay. And then there's suggested motion language if someone wants to read it. So again, this is something we have to do every year.
Correct, and it's in line with the RSA.
Yep, make a motion to authorize the superintendent and his designee to continue the suspension of a student for a period in excess of 10 school days as provided for in RSA 193:13B.
Got a motion to have a second?
Second.
Second by Jack. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And abstain. 8-0-0. Last item is first day of school for 2023-2024 is going to be August 28th. 2023, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then do we have to vote on that?
No,
Where's
we already set
that?
the
Just
school
what it is?
calendar, it was just
Yeah.
information.
Okay. All right. So that's the first day of school.
We just finished the last day. We're already looking
I
forward to the first day.
know. Administrator's report.
Cool. A couple things to share, three of which that are just things that I've attended in the last 2 weeks. I'll go back in time as far as I can. I went to a BioTrek piece at the high school. Super cool. So we've got students who are making a presentation of a real-world kind of health problem, and they've designed a solution to that based upon what they've kind of been learning through class. There's 2 kind of partners in the community that are corporations that come in, and they serve as kind of panelists for the kids. So they're getting up there, and then they're responding to questions and inquiries in real time. So it was the real time that was the best part of it, because you get to see kids kind of thinking on their feet and accessing the knowledge they did, and then responding to professionals that kind of work in the field. And there's awesome opportunities that are left to those kids. So one way is that we always talk about creating real-world experiences for kids. It's one way that the high school is able to bring that experience into the school building itself. So wanted to recognize those students that participated. I'm sure a lot of you guys were at high school graduation and also middle school celebration. So high school graduation, what stuck out to me, I was watching it kind of from the bleachers. Just super impressed with the poise of the kids who spoke. The sound and the clarity from Dean and his crew was really good. But watching them up there and be able to have the cadence of it and something of substance to say was really impressive. Then I was talking to Ginger Drexel the other day, and for the middle school celebration, I was super up front and super close and got to see the kids before their names were called, and then how they all differently kind of got through the stage thing. Like whether they primped themselves, whether they looked down, whether they were smiling. It was just like everyone had a unique experience to kind of, and just, again, drawing the attention about how individualized that stuff is. And they're all thinking about different things that they overcame as they're walking across that stage. So that was a special moment as well. And then coming up, this next week we've got some dedicated admin time for some professional development. Sandy and I have kind of mapped out maybe 8 kind of discrete things that we're going to do with them based upon some of the things that we've learned over the course of this year. So we're excited for that time next week.
Great. Did you have anything, Sandy?
No, just echoing, I was able to attend the same events that Justin spoke to, and they were really just fantastic. And just want to acknowledge that we have a full day of professional development for our educators tomorrow, with some really great time for collaborative work, for some reflection on the year and some new learning moving forward into the fall. And also just want to personally acknowledge, having been a Timberlane educator here for a long time, you all see the personnel report. We have a number of staff who are retiring and are longstanding educators here. I just want to kind of personally take a moment to acknowledge all of our staff, but especially those staff members who are leaving us and moving on, and just say a deeply felt expression of gratitude to all of them. And we appreciate all they do for our students, and for our colleagues. So,
thank you. All right, next is personnel report, and we have a couple professional nominations and resignations.
We have 2 professional nominations through resignations. I will say we're making some really good progress in filling positions, so I'm pretty happy about that. Ministry is working really hard. So hopefully you'll start to see a little bit more of those nominations coming through and a little less resignations, but what you have is what you have before you for today.
Okay, thank you. So could I get a motion to accept the nominations of the 2 individuals, please? Shauna, it's your thing, do it.
Make a motion to accept the professional nominations of Nicole Bartlett as a music teacher and band teacher at Pollard and Sandown North Elementary, and Jeffrey Modlish, a physical education health teacher at Sandown North Elementary.
A motion to have a second?
Second.
Second by Kim. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed and abstain, 8-0-0. And then we have 4 resignations.
Make a motion to accept the professional resignations of Jocelyn Marks, speech language pathologist at Sandown North Elementary, Laura Spengel, 3rd grade teacher at Pollard Elementary, Bradley Louis Vigars, English teacher at Timberlane Regional High School, and Leslie Kahn, French teacher at Timberlane Regional Middle School.
I have a motion to have a second. Seconded by Mark. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed and abstained. All right. And then Fran, you said you guys have been making some really good progress as far as filling positions, and we still have the vacancy report on the back for general knowledge. So
yes.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Fran.
Thank you. Right. Committee reports. I'm going to start over here. Bree, you can go first.
The Strategic Planning Committee met and had a workshop. And we just got our second read approved.
Thank you. Kim?
I had CNA this week, but I had to leave early. Paul sent me the notes, and Dawn was there too. We put a change in the social studies curriculum for 6th grade through for a first read. We are talking about classroom sizes, and we are going to do a subcommittee with Shauna and Sandy and myself and Bree, and to talk about class sizes and more, hopefully post-COVID ideas of classroom sizes. And then Sandy, do you want to talk about the third thing, our library?
Yeah.
I don't want to
Yep.
I don't want to misspeak.
Sure, I'm happy to. Just high-level summary. There are 2 policies that we've been looking at CNA. So one is the policy IIB class size, but we've also been looking at our policy. We have 2 different policies that both have the same language, but they're coded in different areas around challenged materials for classroom instructional materials or library resources. And so we've actually, the past 2 meetings, looked at that policy, and that's another one that we want to bring to a smaller committee to do some really focused work to be able to move that back to policy for consideration there.
Thank you. And that's it for me.
Mark?
Everything was already covered.
Shauna?
Nothing.
I don't have anything. I just want to say that I was able to attend the high school graduation. It was great, although Dean's drone, I thought it was a bee getting me a couple times. And I was like, what is that? And just congratulate all the 5th and 8th graders who are getting to do their moving up. And but as far as that, I don't have anything else.
I don't have anything either, other than all the spring sports clearly wrapped up. A lot of positives. I don't know. I mean, we have the girls' high school team in here. But I also think the girls' middle school team, which was brand new this year, went undefeated.
Oh, wow.
Really?
And won the whole
Shebang.
the whole shebang. Yeah, so middle school teams for lacrosse for boys and girls were new this year. The lacrosse program's very successful. A lot of our programs are very successful, and I think kudos to all our athletes. All the summer camps are starting. There's a lot of summer camps out there for pretty much every sport. They're starting in the next week, like next week. So if you're interested, for the youth, it's something that people can sign up for, and they should be looking at. But they're all throughout the summer, various sports camps. So, Jack.
Construction. Maria, you want to come up here and talk to the lease and what we talked about during the construction meeting about the clause getting out of? You said you needed the board to waive or give you the authority to get out of the clause. What is
You're talking
it?
about
An
the penalty?
early.
You're talking about the penalty?
Yeah, the prepayment clause. Didn't we say that during the construction meeting that you needed the board to give you the authority to do that?
So when we put out for the RFP for the lease, it was specified in the RFP that we were seeking a non-penalty prepayment lease in case we refinance, so we wouldn't have to pay a penalty. The two bids that we received, they both had a prepayment penalty. In talking to the banks, and actually I reached out to two other districts that have a lease with Bank of America. It is a standard process for banks to have the prepayment penalty, and they do not offer the option of leases with no prepayment penalty for municipalities. So I'm just confused because I never seen.
Did our bank bid?
No.
Why not?
Because they didn't want to.
Were they aware of it?
Yeah.
Could we potentially ask them to revisit, seeing as how they're holding on to, they're managing an awful lot of our funds?
$100 million.
So
I would suggest, possibly exploring that avenue, asking them to consider it, considering our long-standing relationship with them, that they should probably take that into account with their, willingness to consider.
Oh, I did have a conversation, like 3 or 4
With them.
conversations with our bank. Yeah, with our.
And they said,
for our
no
bank.
bueno.
They did look at it. They asked for additional information when they were planning to put a bid, and then they decided that they didn't want to bid for it.
They say why?
No, not to me. I can ask if they said it to the leasing company that we're using, because we're using a leasing company, so I'm not supposed to reach out directly to them, but I can ask for the feedback. So what I did is we had like a kickoff meeting with Bank of America, and I did express to them the disappointment of having this provision because it didn't really help. So what they came back with was that they were willing to reduce it from 2% to 1% if we refinance with Bank of America, if the rates were more advantageous. So I actually did the math of what would have been if we went with the bond, right? Which municipal bonds, as we all know, we're required to borrow the entire amount on year one. We are fixed at the rate that we get. So if we borrow the $25 million at the rate that they offered last year for a 20-year lease, which was 3.44, is only a little bit lower than what Bank of America is giving us. The total interest that we would have paid over the 20 years was $9.9 million, so $10 million just in interest. The 1% penalty that they're charging us for refinancing, if we do it on the $25 million, is at $250,000.
Okay.
What would the total interest be at the rate that they're willing to lock in?
assuming we went 25
We went with a bond, so for the 20
No,
year.
not for the bond,
Oh,
with,
the lease.
with the lease. So the first figure you gave at 9.9 million in interest, that would have been a bond at 3.44%.
Right.
So with the lease, what is the total interest paid, assuming we do not pay it off early?
I
at the rate?
can't tell you that because we're gonna do it in phases.
Yeah, we're
So
not
it
taking it
depends
all
how
at
much we
Right.
borrow in
Oh.
each phase.
Yep.
Right,
Yep.
which is the main advantage of doing a lease, that we don't have to borrow the entire amount. And even if we can refinance and we have to swallow the 1%, which again, if it's on the whole $25 million, 1% is $250,000.
Understood.
So
Understood.
I don't.
Okay.
When you think about it, it's like 1% could be a lot, but when I see, okay, we're not paying
With the
$10
increased
million.
flexibility of doing it out in stages, we make up.
Right,
Right.
and I still believe we made the best decision not going with a bond because, again, it's a $10 million.
So do you need for us to make a motion to give you the authority to move forward with that 1%?
So that will be actually part of the resolution, well, that is part of the contract for the lease paper that we will have to sign.
Okay.
So I just this was more informational, just to let you know what the final say from Bank of America was. They were willing to lower it from 2 to 1. So then on Monday, after the special meeting, the board will have to sign a resolution
Okay.
to enter into the lease.
Okay.
So that
And
would be,
that's just the chair and the co-chair? Or is that all the board members got to sign that?
all board members,
All the
after
board
the
members,
special
okay.
meeting,
Okay.
you have to hold like a regular school board meeting, which happens after deliberative anyway.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
Jack, did you have
Thank you.
anything else?
Yeah, I got a few things here. It was a good meeting. It was a productive meeting. And
That's good.
oh my God.
I'm so
That's
sorry.
payback, isn't it? Isn't it? Huh?
No, I'm
So
really good.
we talked about closing Sandown Central and not to get everyone nervous. That was actually approved by warrant. And
Yeah.
one of the things, when you look at having to put money in the building and where we want to go, the discussion was we needed direction from the board. So
Yes, and this will be further down the road. Yeah.
right, it's like 2-3 years
Yep.
down the road, but you get what the architect and I want to say EEI, but what they need to do is have projections where we want to move those classes. Do we want to, put in addition? Where does the addition go? There was various talk about that. So really, to get that rolling, the board has got to say, okay, let's proceed with the process of working. I would recommend that working up, because when you start adding up the money that it's costing us to maintain that building, it just makes sense fiscal sense to make that move. Let's see, what else? We had a big overview from the architect as to just about everything that's broken in the building, so that took a really long time. But it was good. Let's see, what else? The good news is the solar panels. I mean, they came up, and I kind of wish I had that slide. I wish Carl was still here. It was much better than I had imagined. So it does, in my humble opinion, if we can make that happen at some point and work that into the process, especially with that $1 million. Without that $1 million from the federal government, it's not quite as attractive.
Right.
So anyway, it was a good meeting.
Anything?
Jackson announcing he's now running for the Green Party.
Okay. Jack, did you have anything else you wanted to say about the committees? You good?
Jesus. You put your hands on your hips and I'll call you Mr. Sapien.
Don?
I just wanted to give a shout out to the yearbook committee for putting out such a tremendous, just a beautiful yearbook. To their advisors, Isabel Carter and Marie Coy, and the 10 or so kids listed in the yearbook that done so much work. It's one of those thankless jobs that they do all year long, chase down all the information that goes in there, a lot of deadlines, and just a very, very nice job. So I want to say congratulations to them. Thank you.
Any other business at this time? We will be entering into a non-public section, 91-A:3 subsection C. If I could get a motion for that, please.
So moved.
So moved by Bree. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Jack. Could I get a roll call vote, please?
Yeah. Stella Woodworth? Jack?
He said yes.
Oh, I didn't hear that, sorry. Jack
Yes.
Sapia?
Yes.
Kristen Savage? Yes. Katie Newton?
Yes.
Shauna Manthorn?
Yes.
Mark Sherwood?
Yes.
Kim McCormick?
Yes.
Bree Woodworth?
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. We will not be back, so have a good evening.